When fear of failure awakens the soul, there was a morning, not too long ago, when I woke up with a heavy weight pressing on my chest. A project I had poured my heart into, months of effort, sacrifice, and silent hope had collapsed. No one noticed, no one cared. It felt as though everything I had built vanished into the void. I sat alone by the window, watching the early light filtering through the curtains, and asked myself, am I a failure? Maybe you've asked yourself the same question before. Maybe your fear of failure wasn't just an idea, it was something you could feel. It gnawed at your mind. It whispered when things went quiet. The truth is, no one ever teaches us how to fail. We're taught to win, to strive, to succeed. But who teaches us how to fall with strength? In the months that followed, I turned to philosophy, not as an academic exercise, but as a lifeline. That's when I discovered Stoicism. It wasn't loud. It didn't offer sweet promises, but it spoke with clarity, with power, with quiet wisdom. It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Epictetus, that sentence cracked something open inside me. I realized failure wasn't my enemy. It was the fear of failure that had chained me. And if I could learn to face that fear, to look at it without trembling, I could be free. Today, in this video, I want to take you on a journey, not just to cope with fear, not just to overcome it in the surface level motivational sense, but to transform it into strength, clarity, and purpose. Using the timeless teachings of the Stoics, we'll explore ancient wisdom from Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. But more than that, we'll explore how you right now, in this very modern life, can reclaim your inner power and walk through fear with dignity. This is not about success in the eyes of others, it's about something deeper, something more lasting. That it's about becoming the kind of person who remains steady even when everything falls apart. You don't need to be a philosopher to understand Stoicism, you just need to be a human being who's wrestled with fear, and now, you're ready to wrestle back. Let's begin. The roots of fear, from survival instincts to modern shame. Fear of failure is not born in the boardroom. It doesn't start when you miss a job opportunity, or when a business collapses, or when your art is ignored. It starts much earlier, much deeper. It's ancient. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors lived in tight-knit tribes where survival was everything. To be rejected, to fail in a way that shamed you before the tribe, could mean exile, and exile often meant death. So failure wasn't just a disappointment, it was a threat to life itself. That fear, primal and raw, still lives inside us, buried under layers of modern complexity, but very much alive. You see, the body doesn't know the difference between being laughed at in a boardroom and being cast out of a tribe. The same anxiety floods your system, the same cortisol rises, the same panic whispers, "You're not enough. You'll be left behind. You don't belong." So we begin to fear not just the act of failing, but what it represents. Disapproval, humiliation, isolation. And in that moment, failure becomes bigger than a result. It becomes a judgment of our worth. But the Stoics saw this differently. They taught that our fear of failure stems not from the events themselves, but from our opinions about those events. Epictetus said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." What if failing at something didn't mean you were worthless? What if it was just data, just one outcome among many? What if your value wasn't up for debate, regardless of the results? Modern culture rewards perfection and performance, but Stoicism whispers something else, something powerful. Your worth is not tied to your outcomes. You are not your success, and you are not your failure. Think about that for a moment. Let it sink in. Most of the pressure we feel to succeed comes not from survival, but from comparison, from social media, from toxic expectations, from internalized voices that say, if you're not admired, you're nothing. If you're not winning, you're wasting time. If you're not recognized, you're invisible. But Stoicism cuts through that noise like a blade through fog. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, a man who could have all the glory he wanted, reminded himself daily, ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. In other words, sanity, peace, comes when we stop living for validation and start living in alignment with virtue, because failure, to the Stoic, is only real if you've betrayed your character, if you gave in to cowardice, if you acted unjustly, if you abandoned your reason. Not if you tried and it didn't work, not if you dared and didn't win. So let me ask you, what are you truly afraid of? The act of failing, or the story you'll tell yourself when it happens? Are you afraid of losing, or of what others will think when you do? If you can separate the event from the judgment, if you can see fear not as a signal to stop, but as a teacher, then you begin to reclaim your freedom, and that is where real power begins. Marcus Aurelius and the weight of the empire, a Stoic, confronts failure. Imagine this thought: you are the most powerful man in the world. You rule over the vast Roman Empire with its endless territories, military might, and political complexity. Every decision you make shapes the fate of millions. Every mistake echoes through history. You are not just a ruler, you are a symbol, an idea, an empire embodied in one man. That man was Marcus Aurelius, and yet, even with all that power, or perhaps because of it, Marcus faced what few of us could endure: the constant burden of responsibility, the inevitability of failure, and the terrifying knowledge that he could never control everything. His reign was not peaceful. It was not easy. It was defined by war, plague, betrayal, and personal tragedy. He lost children. He was betrayed by his closest generals. He spent years not in golden palaces, but in tents on freezing battlefields, writing quietly in his journal while death surrounded him. And still, he ruled with calm. Still, he stayed grounded in philosophy. Why? Because Marcus understood something most leaders, most people forget. Success is never fully in your control, but your character is. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius, he knew that failure was inevitable. No one escapes it, not even emperors. But what mattered, more than outcomes, was how he responded with courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. These were the four cardinal virtues of Stoicism, and Marcus lived them, not as lofty ideals, but as survival tools for the soul. He didn't write meditations to impress others, he wrote it to remind himself how to stay human in a world that often tried to strip that away. So what does this mean for you and me? It means that if even the most powerful man in history faced failure deeply, painfully, repeatedly, and still chose to meet it with stoic resolve, then we too can stand in front of our fears and not crumble. Marcus didn't ask the gods for success, he asked them for strength, for clarity, for self-mastery, because he knew that outcomes were uncertain, but virtue was always within reach. Ask yourself, when you face failure in your career, your relationships, your dreams, do you measure yourself by the result, or by the way you showed up in the storm? Marcus Aurelius taught us this: you are not defined by what happens to you, you are defined by how you respond. And failure, when met with integrity, becomes something sacred. It becomes a teacher in that battlefield tent, surrounded by chaos. Marcus didn't crumble, he wrote. He reflected. He chose reason over panic, duty over despair. So the next time you fail, and you will remember him not as a distant emperor carved in marble, but as a man like you and me, who sat with fear, and refused to let it define him. Epictetus and the inner fortress, reclaiming control from within. He was born into slavery. His leg was crippled by his master. He owned nothing. He commanded no army. He had no political power, no wealth, no privilege. And yet, Epictetus became one of the most powerful minds in human history. Why? Because while others chased control over land, gold, and titles, Epictetus sought only one thing: mastery over himself. There is only one way to happiness, he wrote, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will. For Epictetus, failure, like success, was an illusion if you measured life by external outcomes. What truly mattered was your inner fortress, the part of you no one could touch. And this is where we pause. Because in today's world, we are taught that power lies outside of us, in our job titles, in our followers, in our financial statements. We are conditioned to believe that if we can just control enough things out there, we will finally be safe. But Epictetus knew otherwise. Some things are in our control, and some things are not. He drew a line, a bold, uncompromising line between the external world and the internal world. External, your job, your reputation, the outcome of your plans, what others say or think, success, failure, applause, your choices, your values, your attention, your judgments, your response to events. And here's the revolutionary truth. Only the internal is truly yours. Everything else is borrowed, unstable, temporary. Temporary. When we fear failure, we often fear losing something external, a dream, a goal, a sense of identity we've built on achievement. But Epictetus teaches us to shift the ground beneath our feet, to build not on sand, but on stone. Imagine this. You lose the job. The audience doesn't applaud. The book doesn't sell. The project falls apart. You feel the sting, the disappointment, the doubt. But then you return inward and ask, did I act with integrity? Did I give my best within the limits of my power? Did I respond to difficulty with courage and clarity? If the answer is yes, then in Stoic terms, you did not fail, because failure is not falling short. Failure is surrendering your reason, your virtue, your principles to fear. Let me tell you a story. There's a moment recorded by Arian, a student of Epictetus, when a man came to the philosopher in tears. He had lost everything, money, status, his place in Roman society. He begged Epictetus for advice. And what did the Stoics say? Not, I'm sorry. Not, you'll get it all back. He simply asked, what part of you is broken? The man was confused. What do you mean? And Epictetus continued, has your ability to reason been taken from you? Your courage, your honesty, your will? If not, then you've lost nothing essential. Think about that. Think about how radically different that is from how we view failure today. We are so quick to say, I failed, when all we really mean is, I didn't get what I wanted. But to Epictetus, the only real failure is to abandon what makes you human, your inner faculty of choice, your moral agency, your ability to decide who you will be no matter what happens to you. So how do we reclaim that kind of strength? 1. By separating what's ours from what isn't. Every day, remind yourself, I control my thoughts, my actions, my responses. I do not control outcomes, people, or fortune. 2. By preparing for setbacks, mentally and spiritually. The Stoics practiced a discipline called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They visualized things going wrong, not to become pessimistic, but to remain unshaken when reality didn't go as planned. 3. By redefining success as virtue, not victory. Did you act wisely, with justice, with courage, with self-asterisk? Then you have succeeded no matter what. The scoreboard says. 4. By building your inner fortress, day by day. This means journaling, reflecting, choosing silence over reaction, reading philosophy, practicing discipline, becoming the master of your own mind. And yes, it's difficult, but what's the alternative? To let fear rule you, to let society define you, to live chained to opinions, trembling before rejection. No, Epictetus reminds us that freedom does not come from the world obeying us, but from us mastering ourselves. So the next time you fear failure, remember, the only thing you can truly lose is your character, and that, my friend, is entirely within your power. The hidden gift of failure, how setbacks shape The Stoic soul failure. It breaks some people. But for the Stoic, the one who is watching, reflecting, growing, it becomes something else entirely, a teacher, a mirror, a furnace where the soul is forged. We don't like to hear that. We want progress to feel smooth. We want success to be clean, uninterrupted, logical. But that's not life. Life pushes, life shatters, life tests, and in that pressure, something rare is born, if we are willing to listen. Seneca once said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." The Stoics did not simply tolerate failure, they believed it was necessary, not for your ego, but for your essence, not to win in the eyes of others, but to be refined in the eyes of reason. Let me tell you a story, not from ancient Rome, but from today. There was a young man who dreamed of becoming a writer. He wrote every day, quietly, for years. He sent manuscripts to publishers, dozens of them, all rejected. One agent told him, "You're not the kind of voice the world is looking for." Another said, "Your work is too quiet, too internal." He nearly gave up. The sting of failure was real. The voice in his head whispered what fear always says, "You're not good enough. You'll never make it. Why keep trying?" But instead of quitting, he did something different. He began to journal like Marcus Aurelius. He started reading Epictetus, discovering that the only thing he truly controlled was his effort and his attitude. He redefined success, not as being published, but as remaining faithful to the work. He committed not to the outcome, but to the process. And then years later, quietly, unexpectedly, one of his stories broke through, not because he chased fame, but because he didn't abandon his character in the wilderness of rejection. That man was me. And what I learned through failure after failure was this: failure doesn't destroy you unless you agree with it. When the Stoics talk about setbacks, they never speak in the language of victimhood. They don't ask, "Why me?" They ask instead, "What will I do with this? What kind of person will I become through this? How can this make me stronger, wiser, freer?" Because every failure contains a message. If you're willing to listen, sometimes it says, slow down, let go of ego, return to your values, refocus on what's truly in your control. Other times it says, this wasn't the right path, but your perseverance still matters. Your worth is not in the outcome, but in the resilience you cultivate in this moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances. Action, what stands in the way, becomes the way." This is one of the most powerful Stoic principles. The obstacle is the way, not something to avoid, but something to integrate. Because when you face resistance, real resistance, you discover who you are beneath all the layers of ambition, pride, and fear. In the modern world, we're conditioned to hide failure, to mask it, to spin it, to avoid talking about it. But the Stoics did the opposite. They embraced it. They studied it. They welcomed it as part of the path. Seneca lost great wealth. Marcus lost children. Epictetus lost freedom. And yet they all became stronger, not because of what they avoided, but because of what they endured with clarity and discipline. That this is the hidden gift of failure. It reveals what comfort hides. It calls forth the part of you that is deeper than success. It breaks illusions and builds integrity. So let me ask, you now think of a failure in your life, one that hurt, one that left a scar. Now ask, what did it teach you? How did it shape you? Who did you become because of it, or in spite of it? If you approached it the Stoic way with reflection, acceptance, and resolve, then it wasn't a step backward, that it was a step inward. A journey not toward reputation or applause, but toward something higher, a self that cannot be shaken by fortune, nor broken by failure. and maybe that's what life has been trying to teach us all along. Practical Stoic exercises for reframing fear and building courage by now. We've walked through the philosophical roots of fear, the lives of Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, and the quiet gift failure can offer. But philosophy, true philosophy, is never meant to stay on the page. It must descend into life. The Stoics were warriors of the inner world, not just thinkers. And what made them powerful wasn't just what they believed, but what they practiced today. I want to show you how you can do the same. Because it's not enough to understand Stoicism. You must live it. You must train your mind like a soldier trains the body deliberately, daily without excuse. So let's begin. Point 1. The dichotomy of control your daily compass. Epictetus taught that all suffering begins when we confuse what's in our control with what isn't. It sounds simple, but to live by this truth takes immense discipline. Each morning ask yourself, what is mine to command today? Your thoughts, your actions, your judgments, your character. Now ask, what is not mine to control? The outcome, the opinions of others, the past. The weather, the market. The timing. Write these two lists down. This practice may take 5 minutes, but over time it reprograms your nervous system. It trains you to stop pouring your energy into places where your influence is zero. When you fear failure, pause. Separate what's within your reach from what isn't. Then focus your full effort only on what is yours. Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. Epictetus, this is not passivity, it's wisdom, and it is the foundation of unshakable courage too. Premeditatio malorum, preparing for the worst. Calmly, the Stoics practiced a mental exercise, known as premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It sounds grim, but it was actually a form of mental strength training. Each day, they would visualize failure not to become pessimistic, but to become prepared. Let's say you fear a business venture failing, or a creative project being rejected, or being publicly embarrassed. Rather than pushing the thought away, invite it in. Ask yourself, what if this doesn't work? What's the worst realistic outcome? Could I survive it? What resources would I still have? What would remain within my control? Suddenly, the fear begins to lose its edge. The Stoics believed that by seeing misfortune in advance, we could strip it of surprise and therefore strip it of power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. This practice doesn't make you cold. It makes you conscious. It teaches you to greet hardship like an expected guest, not a thief in the night. 3. Voluntary discomfort, training your will to endure. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, used to sleep on the floor and eat plain food for several days each month. He wasn't punishing himself, he was training. He would ask, is this what I feared? In doing so, he reminded himself that much of our fear stems from imagining discomfort as unbearable, when in reality, it is survivable, and often far less severe than we imagined. Try this. Fast for a day. Take a cold shower. Walk instead of drive. Wear plain clothes. Speak less in a conversation. Be misunderstood without defending yourself. Each act teaches your mind to become less dependent on ease and more anchored in willpower. Modern life teaches us to avoid discomfort at all costs. But the Stoic path is different. It teaches us to choose discomfort in order to become stronger than fear itself. For journaling, the Stoic Aurelius didn't write meditations for an audience. He wrote to himself. It was his way of reflecting, correcting, grounding. You can do the same each evening. Ask yourself in a journal, what did I fear today? How did I respond to that fear? Did I act with courage? What can I improve tomorrow? Don't write to impress. Write to confront your own soul. Be brutal, be honest, be compassionate. This kind of journaling turns your daily life into a laboratory of growth. You begin to track patterns, moments where fear ruled, and moments where virtue won. Over time, fear becomes not an enemy, but a signal. Here is where your soul needs strengthening. 5. View fear as a philosopher would, not a victim when fear of failure arises. Most people react. They flinch, avoid, rationalize, escape. The Stoic observes. Instead of asking, how do I get rid of this feeling? Ask, what is this feeling telling me? Is this fear pointing to something I care about deeply? Is it warning me, or is it lying? Sometimes fear is useful. It says, prepare better. Other times, it's ego that says, don't risk being seen trying. Learn to separate. These don't suppress fear. Study it. Stand beside it. Reclaim your power by responding instead of reacting. As Epictetus reminded us, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Final thought in this part: you will fail. That's not a threat, it's a promise. The Stoics knew this. That's why they didn't aim to avoid failure, they aimed to become indifferent to it in all the ways that matter. Fear of failure is like fog. It feels thick, consuming. But when you walk into it, you realize it has no body, no teeth, no soul. It's your mind that gives it power. So train your mind, like the Stoics did. Live the practice, don't hold the line. And no matter what comes, you'll remain upright. Unshaken. Stoic practices step by step through the fear of failure. At this point, we've explored the fear of failure from many angles, its primal roots, its manifestation in history, and how the great Stoics responded. But now we arrive at the most important question: how do we practice this? How do we bring Stoic courage into the small, silent battles we face every day? Stoicism is not just a theory to admire from afar. It is a daily discipline, a mental gymnasium, a way of living that must be practiced like a craft, patiently, deliberately, and with honest reflection. So, let's walk through, step by step, how to confront the fear of failure through the Stoic way. 1. Name the fear. Clarity. Before you can defeat fear, you must face it. And before you can face it, you must name it. Too often, the fear of failure hides behind vague anxiety or procrastination. We don't want to admit we're afraid. We say, I'm just not ready yet, or maybe later. But behind that hesitation is often one quiet thought: what if I try and I'm not good enough? This is where the Stoic practice of clarity begins. Sit down, write the fear out in full. Marcus Aurelius often said, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. What are you truly afraid of? Rejection, embarrassment, losing status, disappointing someone. Name it, bring it into the light. That's the first act of courage. 2. Use premeditatio malorum. Imagine the worst. Prepare the mind. This ancient Stoic practice, premeditatio malorum, means premeditation of evils. It is the art of visualizing failure before it happens, not to become negative or cynical, but to prepare, to see that what you fear is rarely as unbearable as it seems. Let's say you want to start a business, but you fear it will fail. What would that failure look like? Would you lose money, be embarrassed, start again from scratch? Now imagine surviving it. How would you recover? Who could help you? What lessons would you carry forward? Epictetus reminds us, what upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about things. By imagining failure, you remove its fangs. You stop fearing the unknown, and that, in itself, is a kind of victory. 3. Detach identity from outcome. You are not your results. This is one of the most radical and freeing ideas in Stoicism. You are not what happens to you. You are how you respond. In modern life, we're taught to tie our worth to success, to promotions, followers, money, praise. So when we fail, it feels like we are the failure. But the Stoics teach us to draw a clear line. The only thing that belongs to you, fully, always, is your judgment, your intention, your effort. If you try with virtue, you have succeeded, no matter what the world says. As Seneca writes, he who has given his best has done well. For, embrace the obstacle, amor fatuit. If failure wasn't the enemy, what if it was the path? That is the radical power of amor fati, the Stoic idea of loving your fate. Not just accepting what happens, but embracing it, even when it hurts. When you fail in love, in business, in dreams, pause and ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? Failure can crush you, or it can forge you. It can humble your ego, clarify your values, and reveal your true strength. Every Stoic understood this. From Epictetus, who lost his freedom, to Marcus Aurelius, who lost his children, to you who may lose a dream, they all chose to say, this is mine, and I will use it well. 5. Daily reflection, the evening review. Every evening, the Stoics sat with their thoughts. They reflected, where did I act with courage today? Where did fear win? You don't need anything fancy, just a notebook, a quiet space, a willingness. To be honest, did you speak up today, even when you were nervous? Did you hesitate when you should have acted? What can you improve tomorrow? This is where growth happens, not in grand gestures, but in silent reflection. Seneca wrote, when the light has been removed, and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day. Do the same. Make reflection a sacred ritual. 6. Act with courage, not perfection. You will never be fearless. That's not the goal. The goal is to act, even with the fear. Write the book, apply for the job, ask the question, launch the idea. The Stoics believe that we are not here to succeed perfectly, but to live virtuously, to act in accordance with our nature and our values. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius, let your failure become fuel. Let your setbacks carve character. Do not wait for fear to vanish. It won't, but you can still move, not recklessly, but boldly. 7. Build a philosophy, not just a mindset. Finally, remember this. Stoicism is not a motivational hack. It is a philosophy of how to live. When you internalize it, not just intellectually, but spiritually, it becomes your shield and sword. You begin to walk through the world with quiet strength. You stop measuring yourself by applause. You stop fearing the storm, because you have built something stronger within. And that, in the end, is the most Stoic triumph of all. Not to defeat fear, but to befriend it, to sit with it, learn from it, and continue forward, undaunted, unshaken, free. A new definition of failure and the freedom to begin again. So, after all this, after tracing the roots of fear, walking with the Stoics, and practicing the art of courage, what are we left with? What is failure, really? Is it the rejection, the loss, the unfinished book, the unsold product, the silent audience? Or is it something far more subtle, more dangerous? Maybe, just maybe, failure is not trying at all. Not because we lacked time, or skill, or opportunity, but because we allowed fear to make our decisions. And that is the real tragedy the Stoics warn us against. Not the fall, but the surrender. Not being defeated, but refusing to show up. Redefining failure the Stoic way. The Stoics give us a new lens through which to see failure, not as a shameful scar, but as a natural, even necessary, part of the human path. To fail honorably is to live with courage, to act in alignment with your values, knowing full well the outcome may not go your way, but going anyway, because virtue demanded it. Seneca said it beautifully. Sometimes even to live is an act of courage. To try again after being broken. To rebuild your dreams after they fall apart. To face a world that mocks effort and still give your best. This is not weakness. This is strength in its rawest, most sacred form. Freedom lies on the other side of fear. Let's say it plainly. Failure is not the enemy. Fear is, but once you confront fear, once you name it, question it, walk through it, something remarkable happens. You become free. Free to create without obsessing over approval. Free to act without needing guarantees. Free to live without clinging to outcomes. You begin to understand what Epictetus meant when he said, "You may fetter my leg, but my will, not even Zeus, can overpower that." No one can take away your courage, no failure can touch your inner freedom, unless you hand it over, and that is the most stoic truth of all. Begin again. Stronger than before. Maybe you have failed. Maybe you carry regrets, ideas unspoken, risks avoided, dreams half-built, but the Stoics would say, begin again, because every morning is a fresh chance to practice courage. Every failure is a chance to build character. Every moment is a chance to live philosophically, not reactively. And when you rise from failure, not bitter but wiser, become something rare in this world, someone who cannot be broken by circumstance, someone who has stood face to face with fear and said, "You do not rule me." Let this be the moment you decide you. VE listens to this long reflection not because you're weak but because you are ready to face the fear you've been avoiding, ready to stop negotiating with hesitation, ready to live, not cautiously, but courageously. So take this moment now, not as a conclusion, but as a beginning, not the end of a video, but the start of a new journey, a journey with a different definition of success, a wiser view of failure, and a heart trained, day by day, in the ancient art of freedom. If this resonated with you, remember, the Stoics didn't seek comfort. They sought truth, and truth begins not in knowing, but in living. Until next time, stay grounded, stay bold, stay free. This is Stoic Penglai, and now, go live as if fear had no power over you.